Yeah, let's start from the beginning. Motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Great. First item is public forum. Let's start with folks in the room.
Thank you, commissioners and public works folks. My name is Jason Van Drysch. I live in Ward 5. And I'm here to talk to you today about two issues, one very specific and one quite broad, but they're related. The specific issue is speed tables. Something I've been following for a number of years, and where I think a major course correction is needed on the part of the department. I live right near the intersection of Locust and Caroline. And back in 2022 and 23, I was following very closely the project that rebuilt those intersections that was supposed to include speed tables, and for all practical purposes does not. There's nothing discernible when you go through those intersections. Afterwards, I asked for some speed data because during that back and forth about that project, I had an email back and forth with Norm Baldwin where I asked him, what's the goal here? What's the target? And he said, we're aiming for around 15 to 20 miles an hour at the device, meaning as people are crossing the speed table. I know for a fact that that's not true, and that the design of the speed table did not achieve that goal. And that design is 3 inches of rise in 6 feet of run. I then got some speed data. In 2023, Public Works and the Regional Planning Commission collected speed data just a little bit up from the intersection. And over the course of a week, about 15,000 cars went over the tracker. Of those, 5,000, a full third of them, were going 25 miles an hour or higher. So that wasn't right on the intersection, but it was close. And I think it's pretty obvious from both anecdotal observation and from these data that those speed tables didn't do their job. What happened then is the part that I think really deserves attention, which is that the exact same design, 3 inches of rise and 6 feet of run, was used for the speed tables that recently went on Pine Street. The ones on Locust can be fixed, and I've had some conversations with Chapin and other folks at DPW about the possibility of redoing the asphalt so it's more of a real speed table. This stuff on Pine Street is built for the ages, and it's, I think, a real issue that the exact same design that so clearly failed on Locust was then used again on Pine in a way that really is not going to be changed in any of our lifetimes, given how awesome that construction was and how much effort went into it and resources. So my first request to you as a commission is to work with staff and direct the department to do a thorough evaluation of the impact of the speed tables here on Pine Street on speed of vehicles. And I don't just mean the speed of vehicles as they cross it, because sometimes, as you know, vehicles on Pine Street are going slow for reasons that have nothing to do with anything on the street, but just because there's a ton of traffic and nothing's moving. But rather, what's the differential between their speed immediately before the speed table and immediately after it? Does it have an effect? I think from the experience on Locust, we're going to find that it does not consistently slow vehicles down to 15 to 20 miles an hour, which is the safe speed in an environment like that. So if that's the case, I'd also ask that the commission direct the department to revise its design standard for speed tables, because they're an extremely important intervention that I think is going to see a lot more use in the city. But we absolutely need to be spending money on a design that actually works and slows cars down. And I can tell you anecdotally, as someone who bikes along the absolutely gorgeous, fabulous bike path along Pine Street every day to get to work, that the vast majority of cars are not slowing down as they go across those speed tables. I bike along there at about 15 miles an hour, and they clip right by me at about double my speed. So that's the first thing, a small thing. I'll be quick. The second bigger thing that's very much connected is I've been thinking a lot about Burlington's goals as a city. And one of our goals is a lot more housing. And we have all kinds of things set in motion to make that happen. it's also very clear that traffic in Burlington is in many places and at many times quite bad. There's a lot of backed up traffic, a lot of places where it takes a long time to get from one place to another if you're in a car. So we really need a strategy, a philosophy, a mission for our streets that is aligned with our goals for how we want the city to grow. And I see a disconnect right now between the I guess you could call it the expressed mission of DPW. And what I mean by that is the mission that one would gather when you look at how projects are done. And I would interpret that expressed mission as balance the needs of all the users of the streets, taking into account who shouts the loudest and try to figure out how to make it all work. And where possible, make things better for walking and biking. And that's a really hard and thankless job to try to make that your goal. They might characterize it a little differently, but that's what it looks like looking at the product. I think what we need as a mission for DPW is something much more along the lines of rebuild our streets and work with partners to rethink our entire transportation system such that driving alone becomes alternative transportation. Because that's the only thing that's going to give us a transportation that actually still works if and when we meet our housing goals and have a whole bunch more people living in the city of Burlington. And the reason why I'm bringing this to the commission is because I don't think this is something that staff can do on their own. They need a very clear directive from the commission and ultimately from the mayor that we've got this direction as a city, and you're going to get a lot of pushback and hollering from people who are invested in the status quo. And there's always resistance to change. So there needs to be a push from the folks who give this department their marching orders, you guys and the mayor, to say, look, here's where we need to go. We've got your backs. Because I know there's a lot of the people in the department care deeply about this work and really want these kinds of changes. But what I've seen over and over is a balancing act that really doesn't move us towards the kind of transportation future that we need. So I would love to see the commission and the administration really give clear direction and firm backing to the department to move much more assertively in the direction of cars being alternative transportation, definitely a part of the mix, but no longer the 80–90% solution for transportation in Burlington. And I brought up the speed tables as my first item because I think that's emblematic of what I'm trying to get at here. Those speed tables represent a balancing of how do we do this and this and this and the other thing, and end up not achieving what was laid out at the get-go as the clear goal, which was slow traffic down so it's safe to cross the street. And I think that kind of dynamic is playing out all over the place through no fault of the department. It's really a question of what's the direction of our city, and does this department have a clear mandate and really solid backing from leaders to carry out that vision. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment in person? Okay.
Hello, Jack Tiano. I just gonna speak off the cuff for just a moment to give some positive feedback or support of the changes to parking fees. I was looking through, it's a step in the right direction. I think the fact that we're talking about reassessing what we're charging for parking, especially in the downtown, is really important. I think as always, like, we can go for it further. I respect the fact that seems like the proposal is to wait until after the holiday season, give it more time, not interact with the holiday shopping, but kind of to jump off of I guess what Jason was saying too. I think it's really critical as we kind of lay out the longer term vision of the city, how transportation plays into the rest of these pieces, and like funding the improvements and the changes for this transition that like inevitably needs to happen over the next, whether you want to say 10, 20, 50, or 100 years, like there's a definite kind of start and end where we need to be. And I think really the only difference that most people disagree on is how quickly it needs to happen. but that, whatever speed we take that transition at, finding more revenue sources, to make that transition happen, is important. And so, you know, I have a bunch of thoughts. There's a number of people who have a bunch of thoughts on how we can kind of be more aggressive or more thoughtful or more targeted in terms of how changes to on-street parking, how that works at all, and especially how it's paid for and where that money can go to. So I think this is a really good first step. I'm excited to see movement on that. And that's really it. So I guess in a lot of ways, I feel like it's like, yes, we're on the right step. Like, this is not like, I don't think this is the end of the conversation on like how parking should work and where it needs to go. So just a word of support, and hope to see it too. So
Great, thank you. Could you sign in if you have? Anybody online for public comment?
Yeah, Chair Sharon Butcher, you're up in queue.
Hi, good evening. I also was very happy to see, I want to speak about the increased fee for on-street parking, but I was pleased to see the supplemental memo stating that this would be delayed until after the holidays. I think it said January 1st, and I'm hoping that the department and the commission will tweak that to make it January 6th, so that the week between Christmas and New Year's, when people are frequently visiting Vermont and the Burlington area, would come down and the cost of parking wouldn't be a deterrent. I listen to people that that speak, and I think that what Burlingtonians need to remember is that we used to want, I hope we still do want, people from outside of our community to come to our community. And public transportation is limited at best to accomplish that. So I believe that we need to be able to accommodate people. We need to encourage people to come downtown. We have Main Street renovations, but we have a bigger problem, as we all know. We have what every other city in Vermont and around the country is experiencing with homelessness and the substance abuse problem. And it just goes on and on and on. With the number of stores that can't, with the retail theft. And so I feel that I'm asking the Department of Public Works to remember that we are all part of the city of Burlington, and that one action has ripple effects. And for me, to maintain our downtown and to have a vibrant downtown, or try to regain the vibrancy in our downtown, is really key for our tax base, for just so many reasons. So I understand environmentally why people want to discourage people using cars, but I don't think that the plan is really well thought out, because the point of what Burlington used to be was a destination. And if you have no way of getting people through public transportation to Burlington, if you curtail or make it not unfriendly, but less enticing to come down with increased costs for parking, etc., I think that is a real problem. And then the last thing I wanted to say to the commission and the department is, I am a woman now in my 70s, and I've spent a lot of time downtown, mainly in City Hall, but on the street. I buy my things in Burlington. But the bottom line is, I don't use parking structures anymore because I don't feel safe. I know that there have been measures to try to make that different, but it's going to take time for that to happen. And so to say that a substitute or to entice people to a parking structure, I can tell you that a lot of people that don't live in Burlington are not enticed to use parking structures. So anyways, thank you so much for rethinking the implementation date. And I appreciate your time.
Great, thank you, Sharon.
Evan Gould, you're up in queue.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Cool. My name's Evan Gould. I'm a resident of Ward 5. I also wanted to speak in support of the increases to the parking prices downtown. There are lots of private lots downtown that charge $4 or more per hour for parking. So I think the 60 cent to $2 rate is reasonable. I would even go 75 cents at the bottom end and 250 at the top. But I think longer term, what I would like to see as we're moving towards the smart apps and the kiosks, I would like to see demand-based parking pricing. There's lots of other cities in the US that are experimenting with this kind of parking payment plans. And I think it meets the needs of, if there's not a lot of people downtown, parking is cheaper. If there's a lot of people downtown, parking is more expensive. And so I think it balances that well to meet the concerns of the business, et cetera. So that's my only suggestion, but I'm in support of the measure overall. Thank you.
Kelly Devine, you're up in queue.
Thank you very much. Kelly Devine, I'm the Executive Director of the Burlington Business Association. I want to start by thanking Director Chapin and Jackie for meeting with me a couple of times to discuss these changes in the parking rates. I heard some other good things from some of the other speakers. I think former Councilor Busher's idea of moving it to after the end of the holiday week is an interesting one that should be considered. Also just heard somebody speak about demand pricing, and as someone who follows parking pretty closely and worked pretty closely with the parking system, the problem that we have right now is not a price problem, it's a demand problem. We don't have enough people coming downtown using the parking. And for every hour that a parking space goes empty, that's a lost revenue opportunity that can never be recaptured by the city. So I was excited and supportive of the idea of trying a holiday, fun rate to, I know that you're going to hear about that in the presentation as a way to promote downtown, because we're getting more competition from South Burlington, from Essex, from Shelburne. None of those places charge for parking, so that's something important to consider. I think the other thing too is most parking theorists say that 85% occupancy is your ideal place to be, and that your price should be adjusted so that you have 85% occupancy. I appreciate the comment that we need to attract visitors, and I think that's important. What we have absolutely seen is a big reduction of people coming in from around Chittenden County. And so I think we need to really think competitively about that. I'm excited to do potentially a pilot through the holiday season, and I'd love to be able to sit down with folks and look at the data from that and see what impact it has, because if we have higher occupancy, we make more money. And every time occupancy is lower, you lose money that you can't make back, whether that spot costs $1.50 or $2.50 or 25 cents, your revenue is zero. So I'm speaking in support of the promotion mainly, and I'm asking for the ability to take a look at that data before deciding permanently to go to the higher rate, so we can better understand both how to increase demand and revenue. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Anyone else online, Ron?
Yeah, Owen Robinson, you're up in queue.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you for letting me chime in. I live on Grove Street in Burlington, and I just wanted to give a comment about the rubber speed bumps that are installed there on Grove Street. So first of all, I just want to say I'm actually really grateful to DPW and everyone who's involved in trying to calm traffic there, trying to slow things down. It's absolutely the right thing to do, and really appreciate it. My comment is very specifically about this particular intervention, this particular type of speed bump. That there's something about the material or the angle or something where, especially on a busier street like Grove that has a lot of commercial landscaping traffic, UPS trucks, even if these vehicles are slowing down, a lot of the times they're going to go over that, and there's a big metallic clanking or crashing sound that emanates from that. And as someone whose bedroom window is right over one of these speed bumps, it's not exaggeration to say I'm getting woken up 3-4 times a week, 5:36 in the morning by a reverberating crashing sound that is loud enough to make me think someone's breaking into my house. And I've actually sat on my front porch and done little decibel readings, that get well into the 90s. And I do have to give credit to Philip Peterson, the engineer who is, I think, most directly responsible for this project. He sat on my porch, he's listened to these noises with me, and we've talked through it. And, he certainly seems to be receptive to the issues that me and some of the other neighbors are facing. So I just wanted to make two hopefully constructive suggestions about it. One, very, very specific to Grove Street. I think there is potentially a pretty straightforward solution here, which would be if you do want to use these bumps next year, to move them down so that they're right across from Schmanska Park. That's right at the bottom of the hill where the cars are speeding up. That's where the pedestrians are. And most importantly, directly across from Schmanska Park, there's trees. There are not houses. And so I think the acoustic impact on the neighbors would be a lot lower there, and you'd have a lot of support from the people on the block to do that. More generally, I just, and I'm not an engineer, but it does seem to me that this particular product might be better suited to low traffic side streets, things like that. But if you're looking at some of the bigger arteries, I understand there's a cost benefit. I understand some of the advantages, but to me, it doesn't seem like a very compatible use for streets that have the type of traffic that Grove has. And so, again, I just finished by saying I am very, very grateful to everybody for all the work they're doing on this, and I would just encourage you to consider moving the humps up by Schmanska, and in general consider where in Burlington these humps might be most appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Clayton Dykstra, you're up in queue.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to comment. I just wanted to briefly offer a comment in support of the parking rate increases and to second Mr. Evan Gould's comment that I think it would be a productive and worthwhile idea to explore demand pricing. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's all for public comment.
Excellent. Moving on to the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Montano. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye for myself.
Aye.
Excellent. Consent agenda passes. Downtown on-street rate changes.
All right. Jackie should be back here momentarily. With try to find her. That'd be great. Thanks to the commission for all the feedback and guidance on this. We received feedback from a number of commissioners leading up to tonight's recommendations. And in fact, some of the recommendations you're going to see tonight are in direct response to your feedback. And we have a short presentation to offer. And then we will just want to turn your attention to the supplemental memo that's in your packet that was posted today. It includes the specific ordinance language that we are seeking your approval on. And it includes a holiday promotion effort, a rate change starting Jan 1, and one of the pieces I'm most excited about is giving me clear authority to be able to do things like the holiday parking promotion while still having to inform the commission on the actions. It gives us a nimbleness that currently exists for the garages, but would allow nimbleness in the lots and on the street. So with that, I'm excited to have Jackie Asperti here to walk us through the recommendations and then happy to answer any questions.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Okay. So, looking to change the rates on street, including lots, which is the supplemental. The revenue from all of the meters goes into Fund 264. This fund pays for signals, signs, lines, crosswalks, and crossing guards. It is also right now supporting 265 for the courthouse plaza monthly subsidy. This budget is currently making a little bit, barely hanging on, I would say. It has lost half of its fund balance since the pandemic. We are hoping with the increase in revenue to continue to assist 265, which is the parking facilities fund, to pay back their debt, which is around $3 million right now. Rates have not changed since 2014. So our current rates, 40 cents, $1, $1.50, and we are proposing to change them 60, $1.50, and $2. And this is just a year. This is what we expect the additional revenue to be. Some pros would be helping the park facility fund. We're also hoping that by increasing the rates, we would help or ask more people nicely to go park in the garage. We tend to see that a lot of businesses, our employees are parking at the ground meters for 40 cents a meter, 40 cents an hour. And maybe we offer great parking options in the garage, so we would go in that direction once we raise the rates. One of the other things that we considered was adding Sundays, which had a bit of opposition from the business community. So I think that this is a better option than that. Obviously, cons may reduce visitors, and yeah, like I said, the brown meters, which we'd see as probably a good thing. So the new, I have a cool song if you want me to play it for you. I found online. So I think we'd like to promote. We talked to some of the business owners, and some folks wanted something cool to promote. So this is just a suggestion, but saying, hey, we're going to go back to 1999 prices and charge 99 cents an hour for Thanksgiving to New Year's. And this is something that business owners can promote on their websites, or if they put something in 7 days, they can put this on there. It's like, this is fun, just a fun way to promote a different option. So in the past, we've done the 2 hours free Fridays and Saturdays. This is just a different way. So this will be every single day, except Sundays, of course. And it can be used at the kiosks, meters, and Park Mobile, which was not the case with the 2 hours free. That was just a Park Mobile promotion. So one other exciting change, or actually 2 here, we are going to be phasing out all the smart meters downtown and going to multi-space meters. So right now on Cherry Street, we have taken out the single space meters and replaced them with kiosks. So something that was just a pilot program that we tried. We did keep all of the posts for the meters, which we are hoping not to do. So we're gonna kind of try some things. We have some new signage that's gonna come out. This is a approximation of where the new kiosks are going to go. So there will be one all over. We have 6 purchased so far that we need to implement. That's the black. We have the orange above, that's Cherry Street. Those are already in place. So we're going to try it out, see what works. We do have 3 others that we're looking to purchase, 3 more kiosks that we're looking to purchase to complete the core and take away the remaining smart meters. So we pay subscription, so we pay a yearly subscription and then a monthly subscription for every single meter. Those are around $45,000 a year. So we think that this new way is going to be way better. We're also not able to get parts for these meters anymore, and we have to replace the batteries soon. So all of this, this was the smarter way to go. Also coming up in the future is, we're looking to develop a 50% off proposal for any new business that comes into Burlington. We get 50% off for the first 6 months in the downtown garage. So that's coming soon. So things that are staying the same, garage rates aren't changing. We've already changed those recently. The free employee parking program, not changing. 2 hours free in the downtown garage, and then Sundays we're keeping the same.
Excellent, thank you. We'll start with commissioner comments. Commissioner Matano?
Hey there. I guess I could say that I am in full support of all of the upcoming changes. I think the 20 to 50% or 20 to 50 cent increase on the on-street rates is totally fair. And I'm also in support of the option for the wintertime season. I'm open to delaying the implementation of the new rates to after the end of the Christmas to New Year's holiday, if folks are open to beginning it on January 6th. But it sounds like everything is moving in a good direction, and happy to see that there are movement on these more progressive changes in parking. I think it's an important part of making downtown a good place to visit, whether you're here for the first time or you're from outside of the city. It really comes down to, vehicle traffic, right, is the easiest way to get in. And this is all just one part of it.
Thank you. Commissioner Barr?
Thanks. I'm in support of both changes. I would strongly encourage us to consider waiting until the 6th for the reasons that the business community has mentioned. That I don't know how much that would upset the income, but if that's something that can happen, I would definitely support that. And with the parking meter removal, I mean, in my old life, we did that up on the parking that I used to control, and it really saved us a lot of money because you didn't have to collect and all those kind of things. But how would you reserve? Because right now I see that you bag meters for reserve spaces.
Great question. We'll let you know.
Okay. Okay. Cones, traffic cones. That's
Maybe,
what we did. Right.
Is that what you did? That's good too.
Yeah, that's just the main thing. We get bigger cones than they weren't really cones. They were almost like pylons.
Okay.
Concrete buckets. 105-gallon buckets.
Not quite that bad. Flower pots, yeah. But no, it's great. I truly support it. Great.
Commissioner Fox, Vice Chair Fox?
So I have a couple of questions. It was said that the signs on Cherry, that was a pilot. Were there any illustrative data from that?
So we got a little bit of feedback. So Newski does a really good job. And so we're kind of gonna go with that option. So using a little bit bigger signage with arrows and hours. So the biggest issue is the signs that are on Cherry don't have hours. So people don't know when it's enforced. So luckily with Park Mobile, you can't actually pay past 9, but if I'm not sure about the kiosk, I don't think you can, but it was just confusing. Some people thought it was 6. So we'll be adding that to the new signage, but big signs that say pay here and then arrows, paid parking, it just is a little bit simpler. I think that people felt that the Cherry Street was kind of a mess signage wise. There's just a lot of little signs and people didn't know if they had to pay a certain spot. So not much for feedback, but that was the hours of enforcement.
Yeah. Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and I remember when they went up, and I just think, it's a lot cleaner. It looks simpler. Like, I know it's changed, can be confusing, but I think, Cherry Street's going to be rebuilt at some point, and to have this be part of that change. Yeah. I know this is probably going to come sooner than that, but I think it's the right direction and aesthetically it's gonna be
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And it seems like it could be like compared with that design. Another question I had, so are the revenues from the proposed rate increases enough to work on that debt from the other fund? Like we feel good about that?
Yes.
Okay.
So using the numbers that I had in this presentation was, it was just that 1 year and it's the same amount of people. So that was, most recently. So if we got more people, there would be more money. We mapped it out. Yes, there will be a big chunk that we can contribute towards that, $3 million debt, which we have currently done 0. So we've just been refinancing it. But yes, that's the hope. I mean, the traffic fund right now 264 does need like a new truck. So we'd be able to supplement both.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure, because reading that is $3 million.
Yeah.
Like a scary,
Yes.
scary number, but, okay, great. And then I guess the only thing I wanted to just comment on is that, you know, like I know that this is a hard change, but it's also like the traffic fund, as your memo alludes to, supports all these things that are really, really important to our community, like crossing guards and crosswalk striping. Like those are all super important expenses for the safety of some of our roads, most vulnerable users, like kids walking to school. And so to me, that's like a really important part of our community's well-being. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so supportive of this is that, you know, like that's our fund for those programs. And that is also really important. Supporting our downtown businesses, really, really important. So is that aspect. So yeah, I guess I just wanted to call that out and in your memo, but yeah, I feel that's important and yeah, I'm supportive of the changes.
Excellent, thank you. I'll echo what Vice Chair Fox said. That was exactly the point I was gonna make was, I think we as a commission talk a lot about the importance of sort of the ongoing maintenance of all the increasing facilities that are being asked of the community for us to sort of improve. And I think being able to do that with this fund and hopefully increase revenue into that fund certainly meets, I think, a lot of the goals of the commission. Could the 99 cents thing that you were talking about, so the fee per hour is essentially going down, but the sort of cap for each of the relevant sort of zones or areas would stay the same of whatever, like the ground.
The hours.
Yeah, the hours, yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
hours are gonna stay the same. So it's just one zone. the
Oh,
downtown-
just, okay, 58, okay.
Yeah, 5803. So downtown core is 5803. So that's the zone that would be going to 99 cents for the holiday season.
Okay.
The other rates would stay the same.
Okay. Yeah, as I think some public comment, I think the demand parking pricing, I think I'm really interested in learning more about that and how we can implement that in the future as we move towards the smart meters or the kiosk, I should say.
Yeah.
I think there's certain areas of the city that we could potentially pilot it first. I envision sort of the waterfront area where there is very much a seasonality to the visitors there. One other thing was just, I'm curious with sort of the increase into the cost, sort of the research on, and maybe not specific to Burlington, but in general, and sort of parking theory, parking research of like, how does the increase of the price of parking affect folks coming, to visit a particular city? That was alluded to in public comment. I think it's an important thing for us to know, there's the perceived risk that fewer folks would be coming into downtown Burlington, but what does the data show us behind that?
Yep.
I think we have different data. We had some folks don't, it doesn't matter, right? It's Park Mobile, they just pay they don't even look at it and they just pay it. So I think it depends who you ask. We don't have any specific focus groups that we've done about that, right?
Well, we can take a look at the data that comes in and the revenue we collect, and if our assumptions are correct to hit that 550,000 of additional revenue, then we'll see that, you know, the demand is relatively stable. If we're not hitting that, then there is some reduction in activity, whether through this rate increase or other. There's always a myriad of other forces at play here. City Place first phase should be opening up next spring, which will be a help. On the counter side, Main Street, Great Streets is a multi-year project and will continue fully into next year and the following year. So we will certainly bring data to you all to evaluate how occupancy is doing moving forward. I do think to Jackie's point that ultimately we are really making largely an inflation adjustment here from what we had in 2014. So the relative burden is similar. And I'm confident that more of the issue of the vitality of downtown is related to other issues that we need to help address, whether it's the antisocial behavior, which includes in our garages, or just bringing new business downtown, which was part of our promotional effort here to try to do that, because we need to be a partner in downtown success.
Could you actually elaborate on the, I know it's not part of this approval process, but there was the mention of sometime in the future, just maybe a broader summary of what that.
For the 50%?
Yes.
Yeah, so we, as a enticement to come to Burlington, and some folks mentioned maybe realtors would use this when people are seeing if they want to lease, but so brand new business that comes into Burlington would get 50% off the so it's $100 right now to park per month in the downtown garage 6 days a week, so they would pay $50 per month for the first 6 months. So we're offering that for the 6-day permit and the 5-day.
Okay.
So it's just just one extra thing in addition to the free employee parking, and you know, not everyone qualifies for that. So this is just another incentive to come downtown.
Okay, yeah, and I would just, I think that's great to sort of get the business in there. I think I would also encourage that, as you know, whether that's DPW or Burlington Business Association or Church and Marketplace, whoever it is, I think providing, obviously, I think they're going to provide that info to those, you know, potential businesses, but I think also letting them know of all the other transportation options. I would want to make sure that's sort of included in the suite of things that get passed on. So after that 6-month period, you know, maybe that employee that's taking advantage of that decides they don't necessarily want to do that and they'd rather, you know, do some other options. So I think making sure that we're not doing it just from the vehicle standpoint, but also the other sort of transportation modes as well.
Yes, understood and support. I think the goal here is to bring enough energy and vitality downtown to where all those transportation services are more robust, such that it will lift all boats. And the fact that it's a short-term strategy is really, you know, we're not trying to give a long-term subsidy. It's more of an enticement, right? Where we'll have the time to work with folks on using the bus and using car share and all those resources that are downtown, but not in the suburbs.
Great. Thank you. I think the last point, yeah, I support the rate change, and I think, you know, I'd like to encourage the department that sort of after this initial sort of rate stuff happens, all the other things that you've already talked about and other sort of policy, future policy things around sort of how parking is managed and priced in Burlington. Excited to see those changes.
Great. This won't be the end of the conversation.
Yeah, I was gonna say, let's not wait another 10
Yeah.
years.
Yeah,
Right.
let's, yeah. Yeah, I think I think as we mentioned before, I think the data behind it, I think, is really how all of us are sort of trying to weigh those decisions, and will just help those future more complex policy decisions as the department's getting creative on the solutions.
I will say one of the pieces we didn't get to in this turn of the wheel, but we will be bringing back to you, is the kind of automatic escalator based on inflation, such that we don't have to come back to the commission to ask for approval, but they will tie it to the, you know, CPU for urban areas, CPIU for urban areas, yes. Such that if we wanted something beyond inflation, that we need to come to you, but if not, that we could make you know, a 5 cent, 10 cent, 20 cent change, as inflation warranted.
Great. And then, sorry, one last point that, Director Spencer mentioned right at the beginning, there was, I can't remember if it was part of this particular action item, there was something around, allowing you as the director to make some additional changes. Could you just reiterate what that was again?
Yes, thank you for reminding us to talk about this. In the supplemental memo, on the end here, the ordinance changes that we are specifically recommending. Thank you to Senior Planner Peterson for putting these changes together quickly today. Yes, and if you look under 19A7, right on the in the middle of that first page for the track changes, special events, this would basically give the Director of Public Works the ability to do a month worth of special event pricing and for up to a month, and require us to notify the commission 2 weeks prior to that special event rate. And this approval, if you approve it tonight, is what would give me the authority to implement the 99-cent rollback promotion that is in the presentation here. So the ordinance language here is largely just changing the prices for the meters in the lots and on street. But this 3 cents is here gives me the authority to do the holiday promotion. And anything else in the future, of course, I'm going to notify you. We can talk about performance and metrics and all that stuff. We're not trying to hide anything, but we're trying to give us ability to be more nimble.
There's similar language for garages for the 4th of July season.
Yeah, that's already in ordinance. Thank you. I
Yes.
forgot to mention that. So, but there wasn't a companion piece for lots or on street, so we've just expanded that to be for all municipal facilities.
Great.
Thank you.
I'd like to entertain a motion to approve.
Can we do public comment?
Oh, yes, sir. Thank you. Public comment. Public comment.
Commissioner Montano, did you have any other thoughts?
I was prepared to make the motion.
Public comment first.
Yes.
Rob, anyone online?
No, but as a reminder to use the raise your hand function for public comment if you do want to participate. And we do not have anyone signed up.
Great. Doesn't look like anyone else is in the room.
If I may, just one final note of appreciation. I want to give a shout out to downtown stakeholders. The head of the Church Street Marketplace Commission, Mark Boucher, has been a real constructive partner, along with Kelly Devine from the Burlington Business Association. Of course, these rate changes are not going to be popular, and it is a difficult time downtown. However, I really appreciated them, the dialogue and proposing constructive alternatives to what we had originally proposed, and that kind of partnership really helps us refine our work and improve our work. So we'll take a look at the data and continue the conversation. But Jackie went to the Church Street Marketplace Commission meeting this morning, had a good dialogue there. We'll continue to work with all these partners and find the best way forward. So, thank you.
Entertain a motion to approve this as written in the memo.
So moved. I moved to make the 2 different ordinance changes, one relating to the on-street parking rates and the other giving the director the authority to implement event pricing for up to 1 month, and as much as possible to delay the implementation of the on-street rate changes to January 6th, 2025.
I'll second it.
Second, great. Any discussion? Nope. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Myself, Commissioner Davis, welcome.
Sorry, Mike.
Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? Great. Motion carries.
Thank you all so much. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Jackie, for balancing so many things today.
Sterling is great. Tim is.
I'm gonna keep it.
Awesome. Before we start this next item, if I may make an introduction, I'm really pleased to say that we have a new member, a couple new members of our technical services team, and you'll get to meet those folks over the coming couple of months, but only one. Our new engineer, Christina, who's here, and I didn't know if you wanted to introduce yourself, say a few things about your background.
Yeah, my name's Christina Cangelosi. Yesterday was my first day here. So excited to be here and kind of see what you guys are all doing. I'm from New York, but I did go to UVM, so I have a little bit of background in the area. I went to school for mechanical engineering, so this is a little bit of a shift. But I'm excited to kind of get to know everybody and get started on some projects.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Excellent, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for allowing me to hijack that and then really turn it over to Rob at this point. This is an exciting piece, I think, I know for the commission as well as for staff, as being able to have an effective outreach program is so critical, especially as we're considering things such as very large capital bonding requests to the public for our wastewater and water and stormwater infrastructure to any of our tactical projects in the field. So I really am appreciative that Rob brings kind of his expertise, and now that he's got so much under his belt, that this level, this turn of the wheel on the public engagement plan is really going to elevate our work to the next level. So take it away, Rob.
Thanks, Director Spencer. One thing I note is you may not have gotten the old public engagement plan, which is on our website. If you didn't see it, and some of this is going to be abstract to you, the intention here is to really come for a multi-step approach. So we want to talk through a little bit of the background and context of the plan, some ideas on how to move it forward, but really to take your feedback on as residents and as major stakeholders of the work we do, and take your feedback on the plan. So apologies that did not wind up getting attached. Hopefully you found it on the new website, but let's talk through it, certainly if there's any questions. My intent is to go fairly quickly through about 20 slides to leave really time for a robust discussion on the refresh of the public engagement plan. I tried to distill down a lot of engagement plans, including the one we published, and let me throw a shout out to former senior transportation engineer Nicole Loesch, who's still with the city. She was my partner on this plan, and I think the plan has served us really well. So I want to make sure to shout out the amazing work she did, not only as a planner, but in terms of her passion and zeal for engagement. And so our plan, and many plans, if you look across other municipalities and other organizations, have a lot of lofty language. And I think it's important because these plans do communicate values, but I also wanted to distill down a little bit of some of my intent. And this is all iterative, so I do want to talk through this, but some of the core goals I have for this refresh, as I think they generally carry over from what the first plan got us, but also what I hope to do. I want to give residents a voice in their government. That's going to take a variety of forms with our projects. Some of our projects are safety related, and there may not be the distinct voice some residents want. Some of our projects are very clearly resident driven and resident input driven, and we want to make sure they have a voice in that. I'm going to say the word project a lot, but one of the other things I'm trying to dial back in this refresh is to not only think of these construction projects and these TIP funded major mega projects we have, but also for now recycling. We just had a recycling toter changeover last year. How did that go? Did we hit the right marks for that level of engagement? So I'll say projects, but I'm really thinking through all of the different kinds of things we do. I think through our engagement efforts, I want to help enhance the quality of daily life. Now, certainly the projects our team delivers, the day-to-day maintenance work that our teams perform is heroic. And I think and the engagement that we all undertake as a department has a real role to enhance that quality of daily life. We want to fix problems. We have a rock star in our customer service team and a robust other level of customer service up front in parking services and water Resources. It's Val Ducharme, who happens to be here. And they're fixing problems day in and day out. And that goes along with the second bullet, which is enhancing the quality of daily life, because ultimately and inevitably, things also go wrong, no matter how well we want to do our job. We have to try to fix problems, and we want to educate, and we also want to, I also want to make sure I'm empowering DPW project management. They carry a gigantic load in technical services and water resources, and I want to make sure that they have the tools that they feel they need to succeed. So just quick background so you understand some of the historical context. I think Commissioner Barr may have been the only one around when we first brought this to the commission, but this was written in 2017. There's some really important historical context for, I think, our frame of mind when we put this together, which is that it came shortly after the North Avenue pilot was finalized on North Ave, and the kind of tenor and tone of how that conversation went. It came about shortly after my position was brought on board by the administration and Director Spencer. We had just passed as a city, I think it was nearly $30 million of capital bonds for widespread construction, where we knew day to day we were going to be disrupting a large geographic area of the city. Luckily, that hasn't changed. We're still doing that. So some of the context is very much the same. Also, very importantly, this was before the 2020 census was finalized. We've seen, I think, real change in Burlington with respect to who lives in the city, the language and cultural needs of different members of our community. And we want to make sure, while I think we did, and I point this out in the memo I sent you ahead of time, well, I think we did a good job. I don't think that job is ever finished. So we brought this to the DPW Commission 2 times, and they eventually, after some changes that we're thankful for, voted to accept it. And then as part of the review that we had put as part of that package, we came back in February of 2019 just to get a review of how things have gone over the prior year or so and take some additional feedback. So what you'll notice in most public engagement plans that you review in municipalities, you'll see some core values of civic engagement. These were in our plan. These were adopted by the International Association of Public Participation. So there's, that element of we're using the same things other people are using, but it's because these were so widely and highly adopted and valued as core values that we try to communicate. And you'll notice in the plan, if you get a chance to review it, we put some words that we also kind of, Nicole and I at the time, tried to take to communicate what this meant to us as a city. So I didn't want to leave this out. While there are some things on the background and context side, I'm not going to get into unless you have questions for those. I did want to make sure to call these out as still very informative of the plan we're trying to refresh and get to for version 2. Keep hitting the wrong button here. Too many computers. So the one thing we did have in the first plan in 2017 that we are sure to, I think, add on to for this next version is impact, equity, and engagement. We made sure to ask ourselves and thereby our project teams, what are the main questions we do need to ask ourselves as we move projects through a life cycle, or even bring a simple, highly disruptive road project or a recycling cart changeover to the public? Who's going to be deeply affected? Are there financial implications? What are the cultural and linguistic barriers? And while imperfect, this has helped frame our mind over how to communicate things that we're doing in the department, and then how to resource certain kinds of meetings, like Champlain Parkway meetings, Champlain Parkway community events. And I have a few other examples that I show later on, but how to resource ourselves so we're at least meeting some bar of being able to communicate with all residents in the city. You have 2 screenshots on the right here, very low-hanging fruit. We're trying to adopt more aggressively, one of which on our website, hanging right outside of customer service windows. And that's cut off, but we have about 20 languages where we're trying to let people know, if you have come across this, if you have a question, you can get help and we can arrange for translation or interpretation. I will get into a little bit more of that and certainly happy to answer questions, but these are screenshots to at least to just try to highlight some of the things we're trying to get to. Then there's this universal symbol approach that I'm trying to adopt within the department and trying to move that to a citywide approach. Certainly not suggesting that my graphic design skills are top tier, but the idea of having a universal symbol as a city and maybe as a county that we can get to so that residents have an idea of when material is available for them in another language, when resources are available, that they can get to, like our telelanguage / propio telephone service. Even if we don't have certain immediate things translated, we can certainly arrange for real-time interpretation. Measurement and evaluation, we know it's a core interest of the commissions. That was built into the initial plan. I don't think it was built in as well as we could have. And so now I'm bringing back this notion, and it's a real question I have for you, is how should we be measuring and evaluating our performance as it relates to engagement? It's not as simple as you know, and I'm sure you can all see the pratfalls there, but how do you really measure and evaluate engagement? So a couple of the things we wanted to talk about in the first iteration of the plan that I still think are very important are things like see-click-fix. How responsive are we on see-click-fix? Very simply, I pulled out some of the core daily maintenance issues that residents bring to us, not things like traffic calming and not things like fix my sidewalk or fix my road. Now, sidewalk hazards, things like that, I did try to build into the data that we collected, but simply I wanted to show you how quickly we're getting to things like see-click-fix vis-a-vis days to acknowledge. That's on the top right in blue, and then days to close an issue, top right in the kind of red color. Now, I'll talk about the SLA graph below that in a second, but just wanted to show you how responsive ultimately we're being. And I think we're doing a very good job, especially on acknowledgement. Now, in the past, we had set acknowledgement to be automatic. We have moved that back because we do want somewhat of a personal feel. We also have built in now the connection on the back end to ViewWorks, so there's even more kind of proactive steps we need to take. So we're doing a very good job, and this is measuring all non-federal holidays. So there are certain days like Bennington Battle Day we'll get dinged for on here, simply because I couldn't pull that data out as granularly as I wanted to. But you'll notice in 2024 year to date, within about 4 hours, we are answering see-click-fix. Valerie is slamming and jamming. Now there are certain blips. You'll see there are 3.7 days in 2022. We had quite a bit of graffiti issues that lingered out there. We've tried to work through better workflows internally between other departments who really manage graffiti and ourselves who also have a graffiti component. I didn't want to exclude some of those things, even though that, disrupts our 2022 data, because that's important. Residents need to see that acknowledged because that's a major quality of life problem that we get to help on, at least help give people the responsiveness. Right below that, you'll see the bar chart. And I'm channeling Division Director Megan Moyer here with just a bunch of information that's hopefully quality, not as good as hers, but she does such an amazing job. I'm trying to think how she tries to transmit a ton of information quickly. But SLA is our service level agreement. So potholes, missed recycling pickups, things like that have specific days we've assigned internally so that we know how effective we're being at closing issues. You can see we're pretty consistent, hovering in the high 70s, certainly 2020, probably for a few reasons, if relevant, we can talk through, but hovering in the high 70s. And what that means is if you open a pothole issue with a 3-day SLA, almost 80% of those generally are going to be closed within that 3-day mark. There are certain things, there's certain lossy data and skewed data that unfortunately it's going to show up, but like the pothole issue certainly winds up becoming, it's not an immediate safety hazard. It's not something our crews can patch up. Maybe it's a shallow divot in the road. If we don't move that to a different category, it's going to affect our data. That's on us to clean up. But those are some reasons you may see, you're not going to see 100% SLA in addition to a variety of other factors. Considerations, I just wanted you to understand, this is going to include most of the maintenance quality of life issues, not the long-term issues that I still think play a role, certainly on see-click-fix, but I didn't want to skew the data so far in that direction. I did pull it, and so it changes not so much the days to acknowledge, but certainly the days to close and the SLA. And I can answer any of that if that doesn't make sense off the top of your minds. One thing we can't measure on see-click-fix is the quality of replies to the public. It's an area that we have tried to be better at, but with staff turnover and just the volume of work our staff has, they're closing issues, and members of the public occasionally want more info. And, in my position, I'd want to give a whole paragraph, but we can't do that right now. And so I think one thing we do need to figure out is how can we improve replies, at least in certain cases. And we do get this question a lot. Why did you close it without explaining to me what you did? And in many cases, we owe an explanation. It's just hard to close that gap. My goal here really is to increase the quality of staff communication upon closure and for interim updates that are lingering out there and to figure out better mechanisms. We built those in place before. We're certainly not living up to the highest standard. I will say flat out, it is not to anybody's discredit because of again, we're dealing with about 2,500 of these a year. So there's a lot to do, but that is a goal of mine, as well as cleaning up the data. So I should have added that on there. Questions to think about, and we'd love feedback in any form you want to share that. How have submissions gone for you? How do you access SeeClickFix? Most, I think at this point are on mobile, but I'd be curious if you're finding other avenues that are effective or seem kind of wonky in terms of how you're accessing. And I'd love to know how the resolutions have been. Have they been timely? Have they been courteous? Have they been helpful? Social media, we have seen good growth on social media. Facebook is still it skews for an older demographic at this point, which is funny to say, having adopted it when I was much younger and it was the hot thing, but it's still the primary online engagement tool, not including Front Porch Forum, which I'll discuss in a second. We have, and I tried to pull other city departments that are somewhat relevant to us. I didn't think pulling Church Street Marketplace, BCA over time, I've collected these over varying points in time. It's actually extremely hard to get data out of Meta to capture your analytics, but I've gone, from what I've captured, I wanted to share this. So in terms of Facebook, we are hovering on the lower side of other departments I deem somewhat equal to services that we provide in the public sphere. With 4,100, we have had a good growth rate over the 5-year mark, and I'm proud of that. I want to see more growth on Facebook. Engagement has dipped on Facebook, and we'll certainly happy to talk more about that. I still find a lot of value in X. We've grown quite a bit on X and are certainly a leading department outside of BPD, who's slowed down a bit with changeovers and leadership over the last few years, who valued X more than others. But we've had a pretty good growth rate on X. We can talk about means and methods. There are a lot of policymakers and a lot of people who pay a lot of attention who still are on X, and I find a lot of value for certain things, water quality issues where we want the state to notice things we're doing. I still find value in communicating on that platform. I don't find it as helpful in other facets of what we're trying to communicate. And then Instagram certainly is a major platform, skews slightly on the younger side in terms of who's paying attention on Instagram. Our growth rate has been pretty good, and I've only really started paying attention to it over the last 2 years. But I want it to grow, and I think we need to be effective. We're clearly hovering on the lower end there. We're super high on Twitter, lower on Facebook, and super low on Instagram, but I want that to improve. I pulled some of the available data I could out of our Meta Business Suite for Facebook and Instagram on the top right, where you can see reach, interactions, link clicks, and visitors. The data skewed, and I left it skewed because we ran a series of ads in 2023, paid advertisements in major metropolitan areas within 3 hours of Burlington for the downtown parking garage to try to drive some interest to the garage. And you can see it really extends the reach, the amount of timelines and access people have to that material, but it doesn't do all that much more, at least that topic. So I'm not sold yet on spending too much money on the ads, though you can spend as little as I think $1 on an ad. So there's definitely value, but it's not as much value as I would have assumed initially in terms of driving other engagement that you want people to do, like clicking links and otherwise. Now that we can certainly discuss was the ad the right ad, were the metro areas the right metro areas. So overall growth is good. I want more growth, but it also doesn't tell the whole story because you can get a ton of negative engagement that turns people off of platforms. We've had quite a bit of that over the years. I think we've tried to work through that. The 2018 wastewater treatment plant issues, we just tried to hit people with facts and data. In hindsight, I realize now these are emotional things, and that's one area that I've certainly evolved in terms of communication. But we can't run from facts and data either. We're a government agency and we believe in our work. So growth is good and we want more growth, but again, that's not the only thing we want to do. I have a couple goals. I want 3,000 Instagram users by the end of the year 2025 to place us further up in the kind of middle of the pack for city agencies in Burlington, and I want to increase our Facebook reach and interactions by at least 25% over the organic numbers. So not over the 300,000 number, unless we do more and more advertisements, which is on the table. Then questions I would ask for the commission: do you check our pages proactively? Do they appear in your timeline? Would advertisements be effective for certain city initiatives and services, so that we chose to send something to all people who have logged in Burlington in the last 72 hours? Like, that's probably going to get to you if you're checking Facebook. Would you find that effective, or does that turn you off if we're like, hey, come to our Touch a Truck event? And then, other questions I generally have: do you still use X? Do you use Instagram? How do you use these services? Questions to consider, no solid answers we need today. VT Alert, we began to train on the platform in late 2019 after the first boil water event in city history, which affected much of the South End. We got active on the system fully in early 2020, had a big press conference with other city leaders and the mayor at the time. The dates are hard to read, but it was like January 26th where we had this press conference, and then 19 days later we had the first citywide boil water event in city history. That was citywide. The one I had just mentioned was the first in city history, which was South End. So this was affecting quite a magnitude more of customers. And when there are potential health and safety implications, we have to move fast. And so luckily we had decided to adopt VT Alert, and you can notice the explosive growth in 2020 due probably to the boil water event, and then DPW partnered with the administration on COVID messaging via VT Alert, and I'm sure that was an influence. And then you can see, pretty high trajectory of growth. We're at almost 24,000 people signed up for Burlington specific alerts, which is great. And that's, if you know or don't know about VT Alert, you can sign up for multiple addresses. So clearly, I would bet we don't have every resident we want on here, but hopefully we have people from businesses who travel into town, parents of UVM students, parents of Champlain College students. So we're hoping that our reach is getting to people who want to know about some of the life safety and other issues that we can use VT Alert for. So I want to continue the upward trajectory. I am sure there's a natural growth ceiling. I don't know what that is yet. We need to create more redundancy internally, so that way we can be nimble and quick, just in case things happen where myself or my colleague in water, who occasionally can step in, isn't around. And then I think we want to try to expand local notification smartly. We just sent one out today to about 3,000 new North Enders for some paving activity that's happening tomorrow. Oh, nice. These are super helpful, super awesome. I don't want to create alert fatigue either, so got to think through that. Certainly, if you don't want your morning commute disrupted, and that's kind of a benchmark for me, if we can get to you before your morning commute, I don't think that's going to create alert fatigue, but we want to make sure we're being smart about it and consistent, because if we do it one time, people are going to expect it, rightfully so, that we're going to continue that. And if we can't manage to that, then that becomes less effective and people lose faith. Questions to consider for you, for the public: how is it working? Have you found it to be consistent and reliable? Love to know about the formatting, if things need to change. Another question that keeps me up at night, and we'll talk more during our crisis communication slide, is if the cell network is down, where would you turn to find information? Really curious about that. If we had a boil water event and the cell network's down at the same time, it keeps me up at night because we would have to scramble, and we're good at that, but I want to be prepared for it. So Front Porch Forum, we maintain 3 accounts. We've seen a lot of postings over the year. I'm surprised to see that we're actually not going to exceed. It felt like we were going to exceed this year our normal kind of trajectory, but we're probably going to be right around the mid 70s if we keep it up. I'm not sure I can point to any specific reason, but we're generally managing about 6 to 7 posts a month across 3 different platforms. Again, we don't want to create alert fatigue. We don't want people checking out, but this is the best forum. The feedback we get all the time is people found out about something from Front Porch Forum. Still not foolproof. I hear all the time, I didn't see it on Front Porch Forum, even though it was. So we can post on a Tuesday. If you happen to be at a night meeting, or on a Wednesday and you're at a night meeting, you might miss the fact that your neighbor's cat is missing. So it's not foolproof. Questions for the commission: are more posts more? Should we be exceeding where we're at right now? And then are less words more? I have been in the past, when we had a lot of construction activity, tried to be wordy to explain to the public what we were doing, why we were doing it. But I have also found that people check out quite a bit when all they want to know is my recycling going to be picked up? If there's construction activity, can I park on the street? And when are you going to be done? So just questions that I think would help us grow our communications. This is just really interesting, shared courtesy of BED. They put this together a while ago, and it always stuck with me from a triennial survey that they do. And shows you kind of the percentage of residents who took their survey and where they get their news from. So 7 days. They were taking ads out in 7 days for, I think it was some of their rebate news. I can confirm some of this, so don't quote me since this is coming from our colleagues there, but 7 days was a major factor. We've taken ads out in 7 days for hiring people for water resources projects. So we've tried to see if that would be effective for us. Front Porch Forum certainly has grown from their last survey in 2017. You can see some of the major ways that people get their news about city services, or at least vis-a-vis BED and vis-a-vis who took the survey. You can imagine that people who take surveys are already engaged and informed people. So I find it interesting. I remember seeing this during a BTV staff presentation, and I've tried to manage to this, knowing that Front Porch Forum, social media, word of mouth are always important, even though you know, everything's important if we can get into everything. So I'm going to go quicker here because I do want time to have you talk. Language equity, I think, is a strength of ours. We've done a good job, but we need to be better. We've taken across the board a variety of projects and used a variety of tactics and tools to try to get people an opportunity to learn about important projects, or things like the recycling card initiative, where you're being mandated to do something with the risk of a fine. We don't want people to have issues with our services if they simply couldn't know about it. So we're trying to think through, if people are at risk of a fine, if people are at risk of a life safety issue, like those are the priorities. And then certainly we want that to filter down to everything. We can meet everyone where they're at on everything. That would be the ultimate ideal. Much harder to do than is possible. A couple of tools that Nicole and I had included was spectrum of engagement, which is also another widely adopted kind of vision tool for how to sketch out your engagement framework. And I'll show that in a second because I think it's an interesting matrix. And then the appendix of project types we have found a lot of value in. You'll remember from my memo, I point out we need sub appendixes to these appendixes, because you can have a boil water event, as I mentioned, that affects 3 houses, and we will inform them immediately. But 3 city blocks is pretty much the point where our distribution team, one city block is the point where our distribution team has to get to work, and they can't then go knock on 3 doors in the downtown where there's multi-unit buildings. So, we've worked through different strategies with how to deploy different tactics and tools for different levels of things like a boil water event. But this is across the board. Paving a small street versus paving North Ave. Clearly, there are differences in how we need to approach those projects for these mini communication plans. This is the spectrum of engagement that we included in the original plan, and certainly will live to see another day in the new plan. And you'll notice in red, I changed traffic calming, or Nicole had during great work in revisioning the traffic calming process, and moved it from a power to involve, because of the data heavy nature and the safety heavy nature of how we're trying to use traffic calming. I'm just going to have this up for a second, but certainly happy to refer back to it. The other strength, all hands on deck. You'll notice we have Val, we have Holly at the front desk, we have a parking services team, a water customer care team. We're handling hundreds of issues a week, and that is engagement in its purest form, and they do a remarkable job. Philip Peterson, senior transportation planner, just took Lake City students out on a walk to look at the Riverside slope stability issue. He's been doing a ton of that. A few years ago, we built rain gardens with the Vermont Youth Conservation Corps. There's a ton we do with limited time and limited resources, and it's really remarkable. Traffic working foreman out at job fairs, again, distilling down engagement in its purest form. And then we have division director level leadership, division level leadership at night meetings almost every week, and sometimes multiple nights a week, where we are trying to interact with people, taking the slings and arrows, but hopefully also sharing the good and taking the feedback that's going to make our work better. So it's truly an across the board effort. An evolving strength, crisis communications. I mentioned the one thing that keeps me up at night is how do we get the word out if the technology goes down, which we rely heavily on. So, we have things like VMSs, digital message boards that can be deployed around the city, signage, flyers, door knocking, certainly things that we can rely on, other city agencies that in a true emergency would be able to pitch in and help. But, we need to think through more of that, and the weather's changing. Last year's sewer siphon break under the Mooski River was a real wake-up call. And then everything that's going on around the rest of Vermont, real wake-up call for just the urgent nature of some of these climate-related disasters that are unfolding locally. So I call it an evolving strength because I'm proud of the work we've done, but I think we have far more to do. I quickly wanted to highlight the opportunities that I brought up in the memo. We need to be more prescriptive internally so that project management staff is empowered. Prescriptive in the sense that we get back to our checklist, and that certainly can change. Nothing needs to be overly, prescriptive in stone, but prescriptive just to give them one less thing to think about. Internal consistency, I mentioned, and that's more along the lines of we have luckily been able to onboard a ton of new staff lately. We've had a lot of turnover over the years. It's really been hard, I think, to stay on top of the onboarding process and kind of going through engagement priorities when people also have to learn the technical ropes and the other parts of the job, which are as, if not more critical too. There's some parts of the plan that need cleanup. I mentioned one example. We are supposed to be alerting the commission chair and vice chair for like 1 million different projects. And we had things like paving projects. It's an open question. Do you want to know if we're about to pave a side street? Is that something that you would still find valuable? We've tried to keep you in the loop on bigger things, but certainly happy to talk more about the tactics that are in writing or not. I think we need to develop stronger metrics, qualitative analysis. So social media metrics are good, see-click-fix metrics are good, but they don't tell the whole story. And then we need to expand our best practices on non-project management. We do things like fines for food. We have the recycling cart changeover. We need to figure out whether it's prescriptive or other kind of best practices that get instilled in each of those things so that we're doing what the public expects, and then we've met at least a bar that's meaningful for the public to have found out about our work or to have provided information at the right times. What else is new since last time? I mentioned the census already. The census is among the things that are on the top of my mind. We have a ton of new staff in water resources and technical services, let alone every place else in the department. So 5 years is a long time. And so that's new. We've been using a lot of new tactics. Telelanguage / Propio is a real-time interpretation service. People don't know enough about it, so we don't use it as much as we want to, but I'd love to use it more and more. Signage, surveys, and symbology. Right now, the DPW transportation team is just slamming and jamming, making sure the public knows what is going on out in the street with rubber speed humps, with the Stanbury pilot project, with the North Ave pilot project. And so it's just remarkable that people have multiple ways to find out, including directly in your line of sight. And then just in terms of signage and symbology, paving, sidewalk, water projects, we've got a green belt policy internally for these projects. They go out. So if you missed your front porch forum, if you aren't signed up for VT Alert, you at least maybe had one last chance to see something else is coming. And then in terms of symbology, I mentioned the universal symbol for language equity, but also we made sure to think through things like if we're going to put up a no swimming sign, it can't just say no swimming. At the very least, we've got the symbology there that shows you not to swim, but also has the QR code with the universal symbol that if we can push to make that well-known, people will feel hopefully even more empowered to find out about some of the things that are out there, especially life safety issues. Very quickly, there's a city, this is small. There's a citywide engagement effort underway led by the mayor's office. And they actually have a deliverable, which we learned, I think, after we placed this on the agenda, and we're very excited about it. I've now been to 2 meetings with them to create their own public engagement handbook with a deliverable roughly by February 2025. I have a few communication priorities, leaving aside the engagement priorities, but communication priorities that I'd like to work into that, and it's a very amenable group, so I think we'll at least have the dialogue here, but standardizing language access expectations and symbology, my universal symbol idea. Crisis communications, given fire, police, mayor's office, DPW, others have a very primary role on crisis communications. And then figuring out a governance structure and a best practice structure so that departments are using these tools somewhat consistently. We use VT Alert. Fire department just signed up for a new alert system for things like fireworks and some other things they're trying to collect. We have a brand new website. I'm pretty pleased with it, except for the broken things that we're fixing. But there's alert systems built into that can be leveraged. The DPW commission, I hope people get alerts. So I've enabled alerts. If you sign up with yet another account, you get alerted right away that we posted an agenda. So how are other departments using that? We need I think a more full-throated, consistent approach. And then I just have this last bullet there, which is I'd love your feedback at the end of this discussion about your preference on the timeline. As I said, this is iterative. This is a multi-step process, and we'd love to come back again if you'll have us. And how do you want these timelines to work together in terms of, certainly we're going to feed in, having had 5-6 years of a plan now to the citywide plan, but certainly that is going to also direct and guide us a little bit. So I'd love to talk a little bit more about your expectations for timeline for this refresh. And then just potential next steps. I've met with some leadership at DPW. Next step, I need to meet with the folks who are doing just some of the amazing work and have some of the best ideas. Our transportation team right now, some of the folks on the water, and I shouldn't say some of the folks, but the water team, just so many good ideas using the same tactics, but in new ways, new tactics in great ways. I want to talk through that more with staff for that prescriptive approach that I'd like to put together. Considering a survey internally, love your feedback now and any other times we talk about this at our meetings. And then we can consider some kind of resident survey about how they get their news. And maybe that's part of the citywide approach. Maybe it's something we push at DPW, but how do you want to learn about things? What are the most effective ways we've reached you and where have we failed in not reaching you? So I'm finally done. Thank you for your time, and I'd certainly love to take any questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Rob. That was an amazing presentation. I think there's a lot of work and thought that has clearly gone into this, and I think we're very appreciative.
Yes.
All
Close to Megan.
Yeah, I was gonna say really close to me.
Wow, I can't wait to tell her that.
Well, you're not a buffer here yet.
Yeah, sure.
You're close.
Let's see, commissioner comments. Who would like to go first? I guess I'll start with. Anybody itching to?
I'll go.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll go. So I use several of those platforms, the old one, Facebook, because I'm an old guy. I'm trying to use Instagram. I find it exhausting to try and use them all.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just because I'm now retired, I just find the one with the best pictures, maybe, I don't know. But C-Click Fix, I have to say that and the Vermont Alert are two that I get a lot of information from, because I've put in enough C-Click fixes in enough different areas that I also get feedback back when somebody else put something in for that area.
Right.
And to me, that's phenomenal, because then I can see, oh, well, I didn't think of that when I put this one in. That's a good idea. Let me add some comments there. And I really think that's good. And the Vermont Alert, I just wish I could confirm each one I get, because sometimes I get a lot of them. I mean, not just from you.
Yeah, that is
I get the state ones, I get the interstate ones, I get this. And so I do read them, but I tend to try and confirm as much as I can. But I think that's a close the loop kind of thing that you need for people to do, so that you know that it's being seen. I haven't used X as much. I used to use Twitter, but maybe I'll drop into that. Yeah. And the last one on feedback for how you're doing and what the engagement is. I think that it's pretty phenomenal. The changes that I've seen in I'll say the short time that I've been on the commission and been involved here.
Short time.
It's still in the whole larger sense, it's not that long, but still, I've seen a marked improvement in how we are tracking ourselves, both the commission and the staff and the whole department, water division, everybody. And I think everything has been an improvement. And there's always gonna be, you didn't fix my pothole, my sidewalk is still this way. That stuff is always gonna be out there, but I think you've made extreme improvements. And the idea, I like that your approach of, I'm still not there yet. Meaning you there's always room for improvement. So that to me is good that you're hungry to get further up. That's it.
Excellent. Commissioner Matano?
Outstanding work. I'm not even really sure where to begin. I think each of each of the items was really well thought out, and I'm pleased to learn that the city is interested in pursuing a comprehensive plan for communication, and I think you'll make an outstanding part of that team. It's awesome that for essentially every agenda item we've had here as a commission, we always saw that public engagement piece. And it came down to even the smallest consent agenda item, that the right people were contacted at the right scale and the right time frame using the right methods. And it really goes to show how much amazing work happens to make all of this possible. And I couldn't agree more with Commissioner Barr that it's really outstanding. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Commissioner Davis?
Sure. Yeah, I'm sharing lots of my fellow commissioners. I do think this is awesome. I think I appreciate that you're focused on growing things, because there's always the risk that we think we're hearing from the right people, but maybe we're not. And that's something that always concerns me.
Right.
There just may be people that don't know about Quick Fix at all, and they're just frustrated and don't know that there's any resolution available to them, which was me not too long ago. People that we've had, I think a couple times, we've had people come to meetings that they were kind of they were aware of something, but they were still surprised at like how fast something was moving, or that it happened maybe they didn't get what they felt like was some final say about the thing. So I think that suggests that, and I'm not saying you can reach everyone and get all the information, like never will we be omniscient, but I just think it's really good to keep that focus. As far as some of the specific questions that you posed, I'll have to think about them and get back to you. But with things like, I'll give a personal experience that I had with Quick Fix. I had a couple. One was there was a street light out. I wasn't sure exactly how to notify that. Turns out I needed to go to Burlington Electric. They took care of it. I was never told that it was taken care of. I just looked out and the light was back on. So I was like, okay, cool. Either they got my notice or they just fixed it anyway, as a matter of course, but who cares? It's fixed. Then one time someone was parked in like a no parking here at a corner kind of spot, which both really bugs me, and in the Lakeside neighborhood with the hula parking and stuff, it was one of those times where it was just like so slammed that it was really causing a problem. So I went to report the vehicle, and I think I reported it under something that it was not clear, like what I should have been reporting it under. I think I had to go to like garages or something.
Yeah.
And then I think the response that I got was like, this isn't the right way to do a parking thing. You actually need to call. And then I think and the new website has changed things, so I don't really know for sure. I've had some broken links as well.
Yeah.
But I think there was one page that said parking was available during these hours, like parking enforcement. And then later on, I discovered another page that said, oh, actually, it's like far more broad. Like I think one page was like, not on the weekends, not after 5 or something. I don't know what page that was. I probably couldn't find it if I tried, but
Right.
there was something that kind of just confused me about the process, and I think the C-Quick Fix platform is really cool in general. I think suffers is too strong a word, but I think it has two aspects, at least, that make it tricky to both use as a user and interpret the data as the receiver of the information. So one is that there are so many categories to choose from,
Yes.
some of them far more specific than others,
Yes.
that there's kind of an implication that there will be something as granular as, I don't know what a great example is, but like someone parked in the wrong spot. And in some cases, that granular thing doesn't exist. There's like a more broad category. And so I think the categorization, it might be better to pick kind of either have far more or either far more or far fewer initial filters. So either have it be way more general, and then the internal system is what routes it to the right group. And then providing like theoretically a notice to the user, like, hey, your thing got to X group. And then if you wanted to go the other way, making things like far more granular, so there are all these kind of all the possible complaints would be there. I don't know that that's a great.
Right.
We've struggled with that balance, and you should see the internal side, because it is far messier, but far more helpful in terms of being able to pull granular data and how it feeds into the asset management system. I agree with you. This is one area that I've always agreed with, and I was just looking at it the other day. We still have our COVID categories up, which are above the BED categories. Now, that's not my purview, other than as a city employee, I want to make it, and as a DPW official, where the public's using using C-Click Fix more often than not for DPW, I want it to be the best system it can be. And so I just noticed that the COVID categories are still up, which were in place during 2020 during the resource and recovery, when the resource and recovery center was implemented. So like if you needed a face mask, help with certain financial aid, like you could get online and use it. And now we're not using those, but they're still up there, and they're above BED, which is to your point about streetlight issues. Perhaps if that was higher, you would have found that. But with that said, I agree that DPW could be more condensed, and we've struggled to find the balance. And it's absolutely on my mind, but I appreciate that feedback, because I think I pretty much agree with 100% of that.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to go. I mean, my instinct is not to go broader. It's to try to condense further and try to figure out how that then matches cleanly on the back end, and how it makes sense for staff who then have to wade through that. But that's kind of the issue as to why there are more categories sometimes than you'd expect.
Gotcha. One thought I had, you mentioned about like closure of a ticket, for lack of a better term. I don't, none of us like it when things are too robotic and the response you get is just like, hi, user, blah, blah, blah. But I do think if it's overwhelming, which I very much believe you that it is, and I think it would be for any staff, even if the staff was much larger, getting tons of issues coming in, it's just the pipe's really big for that sort of thing. And just as a brief aside, you actually have a positive feedback loop that maybe isn't great, where the better engagement is, the more C-Click Fix things we get, or the more tickets we have to respond to. And so anyway, it's kind of funny how those interact, but I think there's a possibility when something is closed out to give something that's somewhat automated, that is telling them not only is it closed out, but like it should have been resolved in maybe one of these few ways. Like if it's a pothole, it should either be filled or we're not going to fill it. We may not be able to provide you the reason right now, but if you contact us separate from the C-Quick Fix ticket system, you can actually speak to a human and get an answer to why has it been resolved in this way. So I don't know if that's the best way to go about it, but it seems like it could be a stopgap, or maybe a way to just avoid people just not knowing. So that was I have no experience in that area. I don't know if people might hate it. So I don't know, but just a thought on that. The second thing that Seacoast Fix, I think, suffers from, or again, I think that's probably too strong a word, but we all like information. But I do think if you sign up for, it's easy to sign up for way too many alerts. So for instance, I think as soon as I knew I was going to be a commissioner here, I was like, okay, give me all the alerts. So let me see what this is like. Turns out there are a lot. And there are a lot that are like, syringe found on ground or something like that. And I think the type of information that it is can give people an incorrect impression of what the situation really is. So like if a ton of people report the same exact thing and it's graffiti on my corner, someone might have, if all you get is the little alert, you don't really try to dig into it, which I don't expect most people are digging into everything. You might think there's like 100 graffitis in the neighborhood when really it's people all reporting on the one thing.
Yeah.
So I think there's a bit of this is not a DPW unique issue. This is just, I think there are some,
manage it.
I think there are some aspects, that people are getting an impression that things are like either more dangerous or less well respected than they really are, because the thing happening is the only bit of information they're getting, not all the times and whatever didn't happen, or all, it's the natural human tendency to you start getting that information and we're kind of filling in the blanks. So that's my kind of thought on Sequence Fix, but in general, I think it's really cool. Like I said, until fairly recently, I didn't even know it existed, but then once I did a few months back, I think it's a great, I've never lived in a place I think that had anything as good as it. So I think it's really cool. Talking about a couple of the other things, I don't really use social media at all, so I'm not going to be a good person for that.
That's helpful feedback, because we still need to reach people.
Yeah, reach the weirdos like me. So I defer to other people on that. I think Front Porch Forum, you mentioned like wordiness versus not. So for me, Front Porch Forum, I almost never actually go onto the website. I just get the email digest thing.
Yeah.
I don't know how exactly those work, but it seems like DPW stuff gets kind of like kicked to the top of the pile or whatever it would be, where I tend to get, I don't know which ones I might be missing, but the things I expect to get, I get. I think in the email format, it's pretty much, I'm sure there's a limit to how many words people want to read, but I don't think it is bad to describe what's going on, let people know, hey, you can meet us at this meeting or this meeting or this meeting to talk about it, things like that. I think that's a good system overall. I don't really have much of I don't know if you have to pay per word or if there's anything like that, but yeah, I don't think, I have not read a DPW post that I thought was like way too long. And I also don't think I've read one that didn't have enough information. So I think it's a pretty good mix. In terms of the being kept awake at night, not knowing how people will get an alert if the cell network is down, I share that concern. I do not have an answer. I hear there are very few blimps left in the world, so maybe cross that one off the list, but yeah, that was a tough.
Get one of those planes with the advertisements thing.
I'm sure drones will be able to do it for you.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Having go to every door.
I'm just.
In terms of when to have this done, and sorry, I'm kind of jumping around, but when to have kind of a deliverable, I think after the citywide one would make sense to me. I think doing it before would be, I don't know if that was your plan, but I think doing it before would just be the risk of duplicating way too much work. There could be symbology that they say you should use this, and we can't fuck that anyway, so why have a final product that we would then just have to change. I know I'm going on along on this. I'll stop after a couple more things here. So in terms of a resident survey system, I think something could be incorporated as it is now, not like a survey at the end, but something that's like those surveys you get, like if you go to the census website, they will say, almost every time I go there, I don't know if they have any like flags or something, my IP, but they like ask me, hey, will you take like a really quick survey to let us know, did you find the thing you wanted? What was it you were actually looking for? How do you use it? Is it like work or personal or whatever? Anyway, just as an example, I think something like that on the DPW website, I have no idea what the cost of that is like. I don't know any of the other details, but I just know that a really quick thing that pops up. Yes, you're only getting users that are going to the website. Yes, you're only getting people, the people that fill it out want to fill it out. So like there's a selection problem in there that I don't know how marketers solve that. But in terms of just the data collection, I think something like that could be helpful just to get some idea of like, to me, the did you find what you were looking for would be the key detail, but I'm sure you all have ideas and metrics that are far more geared toward what the website actually is. And then last thing, in terms of the metrics themselves, which kind of feeds into the survey, I guess, but data wise, I think, I don't know how much the firewall is between the commission and the department or anything like that, but like, I am a statistician, I can do stuff with data, I can work on things if you are open to it, or I can like give some, you all probably know better than me, but if there's anything I can help with, I'd be more than happy to do that. I think there are a lot of good things out there that aren't reinventing the wheel, I guess I would say, where you can kind of use a canned, so to speak, thing to look at something and plug in the data. But anyway, great work. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it, and I'll think about the questions you have in the presentation more. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes,
My
go
turn?
ahead.
Okay.
Yes.
I forgot where I was gonna start.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Oh. Okay. Oh, social media, that's where I wanted to start, sorry. So, yes, I see your posts in my feed. I follow Public Works on Facebook. That's really like the only social media I check actively. I'm not active on it, but it's just the one that I kind of have. So yes, I see it. When you post it, pops up in my timeline. And social media generally, it's such a tough thing, right? Like you could do social media full time, and to me, it's not the most neutral communication forum. And so I would just say, like, yes, it's important, but also like be cautious with how much time you spend on it. And I think the other methods like Front Porch Forum, BT Alert are better. And I would say, like, if you have to pick one, like focus more on some than others, like social media, like
That is the triage right now for sure.
Yeah.
like, cause it just, you can spend so much time on it, and to me, like you said, it can get negative really quickly, and that like echo chamber, and it's also like, frankly, not super good for morale sometimes, like, and so, yeah, so that's how I feel about social media. BT Alert, I really like, I guess I have a specific example that I wanted to ask about. So there was a pretty big crash on a Beltline a couple weeks ago that backed up traffic on North Ave and on the Beltline. But there wasn't a BT alert about that, right?
No, that
That's
happened.
emergency
Yeah,
situation?
the police respond to that. That was after hours, and I actually didn't learn about it, I think, until later that night.
Yeah.
So that's kind of one of the places where in my communications priorities, or the citywide engagement, like, is there you think, that similarly with the fireworks, we've gotten a lot of criticism, like, why didn't you tell us about the fireworks? We're like, we didn't know about fireworks. BFD permits them. Parks does July 3rd fireworks, and they do a great job on outreach, but BFD permits private fireworks. And so we've gotten a couple times, like, why didn't you send out a BT alert? Pets are scared, people get anxiety, totally legitimate, potential safety concerns. It's just, like often I didn't even know about them, and it's not a responsibility we necessarily want to take part of, because then there's like really only one of me and my colleague Jess and Water, so it's.
Yeah.
My thought on that is part of the citywide process. I am curious about that, because I thought about the same thing. In fact, that was going on during the North Ave Plattsburgh pilot, and we got a lot of interest in how those things may have been connected, and at least in terms of the backup. And so, yeah, so we didn't do it, not technically our responsibility. I hate that answer, because I feel like if we get a call about another department's thing, we shouldn't be like, we'll call them. We have to, as a city employee, find you the answer. And so it's on my mind, and that one especially was.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I was just curious because it had such a big traffic
impact, right?
And
It paid to be on a bike that day, let me say.
And we would have, we did Eclipse VT alerts, we did COVID VT alerts, like that's the kind of thing we absolutely will plug in if there is a major issue that's not in our, we just need to, I think, be informed, and there probably needs to be a little bit of a process in place so that we understand how to engage in those situations.
Yeah, agreed. It's an important comment.
Okay, cool.
Can I ask a quick question? Do the other departments, like Public Works, have a Rob?
Yeah, that's grown quite a bit on, yeah.
Well, whether they're as good as him or not, I mean, I'm just wondering. I know we're being recorded, but I'm just wondering it, because one of the things that you could do is just have monthly, quarterly meetings.
We have in the past had regular communications team meetings. BCA's got somebody, Parks has somebody, BPD now has someone, Church Street Marketplace has a few. Certainly leaving some out. VFD interestingly doesn't, though they do have a social media coordinator. And so we used to have more regular meetings convened by the mayor's office, and now I think we're getting back into the routine of that with these citywide engagement meetings. So that's
sharing things is good message. Right? I didn't mean to hide that.
Yeah, that's okay. But yeah, I guess just to finish up on BT alert, like generally, I really like it. Find it to be super helpful. Like parking ban stuff is super important, so people get a text and like for those kinds of things. I think works really well. See Quick Fix. To be honest, I'm like an old person at heart, and I love just doing stuff on the computer. I have the app, but I love looking at the map on my computer sometimes. And to be honest, I don't use it super frequently either for my own things, but my previous job I did, and it was super helpful. And I found the things that I did post got addressed very, in a timely manner. So generally, I would say my experience has been positive with that. Okay, moving away from Quick Fix, I guess. I don't know what category of your questions this comes under, but I can't remember if this was from just reading the plan, but I think I want to put a fine point on emphasizing or being clear about who makes the final decision on what kinds of projects. Like I'm sorry to bring up the North Ave Plattsburgh Ave pilot project, but I thought, Philip was really clear that like we're doing all this data collection, we're doing robust public engagement, but at the end of the day, that decision falls with us, and we are experts, and like we make that decision. And I thought that was really clear and good, and he's been doing a lot around that. But just sort of as like a general practice, like on what kinds of things, who makes the final say, and that's in the plan, right? But I think communicating that during the engagement process maybe is very important. And then I guess thinking about metrics generally, and this is not really a metric, but I keep thinking about our 20-mile-per-hour speed limit decision and how the outreach and engagement on that was obviously like a big media push, right? And the news articles, like the interviews, those got ahead of a lot of the comments that we would have gotten. And so I feel like we did get a lot of feedback on that, but we came and we voted on it, and I was like, I really expected this meeting to be a lot longer. And I don't think that was a bad thing. Like we still got a lot of engagement, but it wasn't as controversial as I felt like it should have been, and maybe that is somehow a measure of how the engagement went. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
We tried to factor that in the first time around. We talked about like positive tone of coverage in the media, positive kind of public comment. It's hard to capture.
Yeah.
And that's why I didn't present anything on that, because it's like, I can show you a bunch of articles that said we're doing good work, and a bunch of articles that said we're not doing great work. And so, but I agree with you that that one has gone well. We actually are meeting again to make the final push in the lead up to the sign printing.
Yeah.
So we're gonna hopefully continue the positive trajectory on that one,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Well, it was positive and it was fact-based.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
know, so, yeah, that, I don't know how you measure that necessarily. So I guess maybe that's data, anecdotal data, I don't know. Yeah, I think that's all I have right now.
Great.
But yeah, I also like having the questions on the slide, so I know what to focus on. So
Yeah.
thank you for that. That's great.
I will echo that point. I think that's really helpful to give us the sort of decision points or questions specifically that you're asking. I think for a lot of agenda items, I think that'd be certainly helpful. I'll keep it very brief. I'm curious in the conversation around the citywide effort from a sort of end user standpoint. I think clearly there's so many different points of engagement, and without any numbers behind it, I bet a lot of the things that people are asking and engaging with DPW and other departments is just, there's so many places within the city website, the new city website, that you can find just basic information, not even like a complaint or something like that. And I think fewer folks are wanting to call a human to talk about that, and I'm thinking about it like some sort of chat type thing. I know the companies that I engage with when I need to ask a question, there's some sort of chat where it somehow uses AI to figure out some of the answers and direct folks, and then it will sort of send you to a human via that chat if you needed a more specific answer or assistance with something. I'm curious if any of that type of stuff has been looked at sort of at a citywide level, recognizing that, I think when folks engage the city, they don't really care what department it comes from. They just want the answer. And, right,
So I'm not aware, but I have looked into it because, like just regular customer service things outside of municipal government, we are now interacting more and more. Now, I think we still value the fact that we have human beings who are going to help people, but I understand your point about at least triaging from a city level perspective. So as far as I know, and certainly if that's come up in any other meetings, Director Spencer can interrupt me, it's not been factored into our new website, but I have thought more about, is that something we could use, even if it's not AI powered and it's us powered? I've wondered if that would eliminate frustration or would it add more frustration? So I've thought about the idea of live chat, but I think we have a few steps we would need to, cost, the human resource management of that, which is we want people to feel empowered, and we don't want them to necessarily have to think that chat is the next place that municipal government is going in. And I think ultimately right now we still value the human connection, but I do like the idea of, is there a role in the future in municipal government to help triage things? I'm sure the Sequent Fix company, which is Civic Engage, which owns the website and owns the platform that we post agendas on, I'm sure they have to be thinking about how this could fit into the future, but no thoughts yet.
Yeah, okay. I think one other thing, there was one of the slides where in sort of the engagement about the engagement plan, you had, talking internally to staff, talking to the commission, talking to residents. I think I would also want to make sure that we're somehow engaging with, however best that happens, with visitors. I think, we're talking a lot about sort of how the decision points that we're making here as a commission impact visitors to our city, and there are still plenty of things like parking bans and other things that affect visitors. And so I think somehow engaging in that, whether that's through an organization that represents visitors and stuff like that, I want to make sure that's in there as well. And then also, I'm sure that you communicate with both UVM and Champlain, but that is a large, sort of quasi-transient population through the community, and they are still, essentially residents of the city and engaging in the city in most of the year. So I think I'd like to see some sort of not separate section of it, but just something that highlights either the existing work that's, that happens there, as well as sort of what improvements and things in the future for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've definitely expanded our engagement with them. I forget the name of the office, and maybe Commissioner Barr knows the off-campus life office at UGM.
Office of Student Community Relations.
That's it. I think
Student engagement, there's also student engagement.
We've communicated with them frequently, and then whoever sends out I wish I was better with names, who sends out the alerts on campus, at.
Mike Shirley.
No, anyway, we've, in terms of like kind of these like snow bans, things like that, far more proactive on the project level. We are regularly working with UVM on issues that kind of collaborate, same with Champlain College. I think, can it be better? I'm sure it can. So that is certainly something we can reflect in the next go around in terms of how we've expanded how we work with them, and maybe the next step. Yeah.
And then the last question is around the citywide effort. Is there, I don't know what those conversations are like. Is that sort of, there's going to be stuff that's sort of mandated across all departments, or are they allowing sort of the flexibility for departments to, like, well, I guess,
yeah,
you speak more to just what sort of the citywide thing and how that impacts, what this department has to come up with for a work product.
Definitely. I think the spirit of it is definitely going to be that it's going to be a flexible approach. I think the folks from the mayor's office and then others who were kind of facilitating recognize the core differences, and some departments are a little ahead of the curve. Some might be behind the curve. So I think flexibility is built in. It was referenced as a potential plug and play approach, which I think doesn't speak to flexibility, but ultimately but I think that was meant in the spirit of how do we reduce barriers to engagement? So is there something off the shelf that departments can be empowered with? So I think flexibility is going to be built in. I don't want to speak because we're kind of at a high level, and we're moving in our next meeting to more of a granular conversations about some of the buckets we're going to focus on. Lost my train of thought for a second, but I think I had more of a response to that, but it's certainly something I can bring back, to the commissioner, follow up offline as the conversations evolve. I've raised the fact that I'm pursuing my own refresh of the engagement plan, and there's certainly been no pushback. It's more, let's look at that to see how that helps us here. Oh, right. What I wanted to say was, I think one of the really exciting things that comes out of that process, from the off-the-shelf approach, is here are the buckets of resources we have. And whether it's, my hope is, maybe we go to centralized contracts with like Propio telelanguage, we develop best practices in-house and standard approaches. But at the very least, we're going to know what these tools and resources are for things like language equity. There used to be, it's kind of put on the shelf for now, but a CETO multilingual newsletter, we got into every single one of those when they were able to publish those. And I think that's the kind of thing that I bet some other departments didn't quite know about. And so it's like, I think the ideal here is that we're going to have a list of external, internal resources we can rely on for a variety of things: language equity, capital project, advancements, and CETO and planning are heavily involved in this process as well. So to answer your question, I believe there's going to be an understanding that every department's certainly handling different things, but certainly that remains to be seen. But I would bet it's going to be a very friendly symbiosis.
And so you said in February was when the citywide effort was going to sort of be released?
Yeah. The Office of Planning is mandated. Director Spencer may know this part specifically, but they're mandated to put forward a comprehensive city plan every so often. And I forget what the timeline is, but because that's coming up, we're all trying to peg the deliverable to being in advance of that, so that deliverable of a citywide engagement approach can kind of influence their planning approach. So that's why I believe we've landed in February 2025.
Okay, yeah. So we should expect at some point after that there would be sort of a full thing for us to sort of reflect.
I think, whether it's me as the delegate, or if we want to share an invite to some of the leaders of the process to have them brief you, certainly. Or if you were just asking about the
more specific at the DPW specific.
Oh yeah, that gets to my question, which is I would agree with Commissioner Davis that we probably want to peg our deliverable to be after the cities, but I also wanted to leave that conversation open because you folks have expressed so much interest in communications and engagement that I at least wanted to leave that as a flexible part of the conversation.
Okay, yeah, I think it's some, probably in between there. I think I could envision another sort of touch point around this to, as you said, you are sort of working maybe ahead of other departments and.
Right.
Yeah, as you, there might not be any pushback, so I think more engagement on this from us.
Happy to,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, and we'd expect you to review the DPW version and we'll, I think, to Commissioner Davis's perspective, keep you informed during the process, but not seek your endorsement till after we know what the city's plan is.
Great, thank you.
Great.
We also need Commissioner O'Neill.
Yes, I was just thinking the same thing.
That's been on the back of my mind.
Yeah. Well said.
We do have somebody online and I'm not sure if they're looking to speak. They circulated, I believe, something to you through me. I sent that yesterday, but I just wanted to point out there's somebody online.
Yeah, we can go to public comment.
If the remaining folks online want to speak during this public comment period, feel free to raise your hand on Zoom. And at this time, there is no one in queue, Chair.
Okay, great. Moving on to director's report.
Great. Rob, would you mind distributing this to the commission? So I will make this short given the time. Following up from last month's very thorough presentation on our capital needs for water, wastewater, and stormwater. Wanted to share the outreach plan that we have lined up over the next couple of months for this effort. And thanks to Public Information Manager Rob Holdings, good work here. We've mapped out our outreach over the coming 4 to 5 months prior to Town Meeting Day 2025. You'll see here that we are heading into November where we're planning our first round of NPA Neighborhood Planning Assembly outreach, and that we will be developing the ratepayer impacts, which was a question we received from you all last time. What does this significant investment mean for our ratepayers for water, wastewater, and stormwater? We will have that soon, and we'll be scheduling a council work session as well, since we've only really talked to the council's Transportation, Energy, and Utilities Committee. But building off of everything that Rob was just talking about with you all, we understand, given the size and magnitude of this request, that this is going to have to be on the higher end of our intensity for public engagement. Really just wanted to share this for you right now. We are going to be coming back with the rate impacts next month, and we'll leave it at that. But this has our full attention. There are tours that are happening. I want to thank 3 of the commissioners who are able to make the tours today. There's a tour with the public tomorrow. We've had some interest from the media to attend that tour. I expect that to generate a lot more awareness as we embark on this effort. So from a director's report standpoint, I'll leave it at that, and happy to talk more under Commissioner Communications.
Great. Any questions from the commissioners on this? Nope.
That's one quick thing, actually. So this is this gonna come back before the commission? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And to that end,
We need some more check marks. That's all
Yeah.
I'm saying.
yeah,
That's all. I was just like, we
Yes.
only get 2, come on.
Yeah,
This is very iterative, iterative. So,
yes. We're thinking mostly about the external partners that we have to reach out to. Yes, and we'll make sure to update this to better reflect that we're going to be likely touching this topic every meeting between now and March.
Okay, that's the impression that I got, and so that's why.
Yeah, and recognizing that we don't have any sort of formal authority of it, but I think all of us as commissioners want to help make sure that this gets to, the final result of voters authorizing the bond. So I think any way that we can be better informed to better inform the public,
Yeah.
Happy to carry on the message.
Same with the two, it was, I think it's just kind of my clerical oversight, because we're trying to hit the MPAs as many times as they'll let us come back, and that's always a tricky dance because of all the things that need to go to them, so absolutely.
Right. Commissioner items, we'll start online with Commissioner Matano.
No comments at this time. Thank you, everybody.
Commissioner Barr.
Just two real quick ones. First, grateful for the opportunity to revisit the water treatment plant again, and it's interesting to get the refresher and to learn the new upcoming potentials, things to help make not only our city run better their infrastructure, but to make our lake cleaner. Moving on to just a couple of old East End thoughts. It was interesting to hear some of the comments earlier about the rubber speed bumps. And I'd heard more in favor of them than against them, but I do understand the challenges that the gentleman spoke about earlier. And I'm just curious because I tend to monitor probably way too much because of my desire to stop speeding cars. How they speed up right after they get over the last bump and go even faster through Shamanska Park. And up all the way up to Plattsburgh, because sometimes, you know, I'm behind somebody if I'm in a vehicle. And so I'm just curious, and I know Philip's not here right now, but I'm just curious if we could consider moving them down and see what that does next. And see how that would help. And just one last thing about the old East End is the chicanes, the parking chicanes. I don't know that I've noticed. I've been gone a little bit too. If there's been any one from Public Works coming down to look and see how it's working. So from my perspective, if there's a lot of traffic, the cars tend to stay on their side of the roads and they're going slower. But there's not as much traffic because now the work on Battery Street or Barrett Street is done. So now the cars are starting to go there more. Cars come straight up the middle and they're going just as fast as they were before. So I don't know what the solution is. I'm just thinking if they maybe put a center line down the middle so that it kind of guides them a bit more on the side they're supposed to. Because many times my wife or myself or friends that I have will come up the road and there'll be a car coming directly at them, not realizing that they should be to the left or the right because it just doesn't look that way to them.
Right.
So, but I think we still need to do a little bit more. I know that was the quicker approach to do the parking chicane.
Right.
But I don't think that it's fixed it. So, next, so great.
Commissioner Davis.
Okay, first with retailer, this is something I just forgot to ask, but how does that work? Is it automated somehow? Do you manually have to like write the message and then hit the button to send it out?
Yeah, for the ones we manage, because if you're signed up, you may be getting like, you know, a bunch from the state or other entities. We write our own. We have some templates that we can upload unlimited numbers of templates. So I have a few project templates for like paving that are in there. So simply have to just change that around. For the email message, same with the text messages, we're character limited on texts. So I know it tracks it for you. Once you hit 80, you go over that, it's gonna be a pretty messy, clunky message. So that's the one, there's no template available, but on Excel, I just keep like my 80 count kind of noted and then just change things around as needed. But yeah, so but otherwise it's generally fully customizable, you know, in terms of text and whatnot.
Partly I was asking just because that's a lot of responsibility to be the person doing that. So I appreciate you doing that. And also, like, if there is an emergency, like people may not always be available is really kind of what I was getting at. So that's a tough. I don't know how to make that better, but that seems difficult.
The state is a good partner and, you know, there is the potential, they have an incident watch officer on at all times. And so in true emergencies, we can likely contact them and they can handle like retailer messages on behalf of municipalities. So there's at least some systemic redundancy built in.
and Rob's been training, the team in water resources, customer care, so we've got a little bit of backup, but not as much as we'd like. Okay, order two.
Then a couple other thoughts. You mentioned the recycling totes, and this is something I meant to bring up earlier, but I like using them. They're closed, stops stuff from getting all wet. Being in the lakeside neighborhood, stuff was able to just blow like right to the lake if people had it out. And the wind gets brutal, like right around now until it's warm again over there.
Yeah.
So I think it was a massive improvement, but one thing that greatly frustrated me with it was that only property owners can buy the totes at the like subsidized city rate. Me as a renter, that now puts me at the mercy of the owner of the property, which is multiple units, to like choose what size they buy. I know there are city guidelines, but essentially it put me in a spot where I'm currently frustrated because we only have one container for 4 units. I also tend to be the person that's always taking it out on Sunday nights, which, okay, fine, like, I'm never gonna fully avoid that, that's okay. Once you shift from the individual things, but it meant that as a property owner, you could buy, it appeared to me, because I don't have full access, because I'm not a property owner, but it appeared to me like you could buy an unlimited amount if you wanted to as a property owner of like kind of whatever size you wanted at the subsidized rate. But then me, as a renter, I would have had to buy something from like Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever as like a private thing at the full retail price to use.
I think the idea was to put the financial burden on the property owner and not on the renter.
I see.
And then there was a minimum requirement. I'm forgetting, it was I thought it was 165 for every less than 4 units. So you should have at least 65, and if that's not working, that is a question for the property owner ultimately, unfortunately. That's how the ordinance is written. What's that?
Property owner.
Right.
Yeah, no, like that does make sense when shifting that burden onto the property owner, but in terms of at least having the first pass kind of thing. But I suspect I'm not the only, I don't know if you got public comments on this or anything, but I suspect I'm not the only renter that had that kind of situation.
Right.
And then the other thing, which I think this maybe mostly would be for future meetings, but you mentioned the TIF mega projects, I think you said.
Yeah.
And I was at a city council meeting a few weeks ago, I forget exactly when, where the development for the South End Innovation District came up. And I don't fully understand what TIFs we already have and like their payoff schedule and these different things. But well, 2 things. One, does the bond stuff that we're talking about, the outreach, create a like foundation that can support developments like of the size of like the South End Innovation District, or is that something that would necessarily have to be additional in terms of like the wastewater and stormwater provision?
Yeah, the quick answer is it helps, but is not the totality of the improvements. So the 200 million or so investment in wastewater is largely focused at the plants. And there is some collection system constraints between, in particular, this C-Corp South End Coordinated Development and the main wastewater plant, such that we're looking at an additional pipe, likely a force main between the South End and the main plant. That would be an additional cost. There will be a large developer component to funding that because but for that investment, the development cannot occur. Though if the force main, as I expect it will have capacity to carry other flows in future development in South End beyond this development, then there's a role for public investment in that force main. So We just met today. We are gonna seek grant funds for an upcoming federal grant to see if we can use that support to kind of help the public component of the force main. So the 200 million, the quick answer is that it's gonna solve the plant capacity issues, but not all the collection system.
I see. Okay, thanks for that explanation. Does the Public Works Commission have any say in how things like that are funded? I'm assuming not, but I'm curious.
No, there is some ordinance language around the commission recommending certain things to the council that are financial in whether it's there are some water and wastewater recommendations.
There's bond, right? Certain bond.
Yeah, I'll have to double check. It's similar to if we want to sell property like parking lots, we have to get the commission's recommendation before we can go to the council. So there are a few things on which there's a financial role for the commission, but by and large, it's mostly policy requirements or role.
Okay. Well, I'll save the bulk of my comments about that for the city councilors then, because they're the ones I think that would be very, but.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'll just do it. So I'll be done for now. Thank you very much for the information.
I don't have a different. And Chair just was furiously scribbling, so I'm gonna let him take it away.
I have no comments, no additional comments, so. I think we'll move or ask somebody.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Excellent. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Excellent. Adjourn, meeting adjourned at,
8:54.
yes.